Her daughter tried to have her declared mentally unfit, while she quietly recorded the whole thing. Vivian Delaney, retired hospice nurse and widow, didn't argue. Heather, her only child and once named executor, smiled and slid the brochure for a care home across the table. By month's end, her name was gone, from the will, the trust, the deed, and every account she thought she'd inherited. Vivian had spent a lifetime being manageable. Now the cameras, the lawyers, and the silence would speak louder than family ever did. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. We're standing on windswept coastal ground, less than 50 feet from where Lenora used to sit and watch shrimp boats with a glass of sherry in hand. The sand is damp beneath the folding chairs. The hydrangeas, Lenora's favorite, wilt faster than expected, their petals curling in the Charleston humidity. Salt is in the air and in my throat. The minister is still speaking when Heather leans in. "Smile less," she whispers, not bothering to hide the bite in her tone. "You're next anyway." I don't turn toward her. I just feel the words bloom against my ear like poison ivy. Quick, itchy, insidious. Instead of answering, I inhale deeply. Magnolia, sea breeze, and the distant hint of rosemary from the wreath Nina made. The scent centers me. Then I do the opposite of what Heather wants. I smile. Not wide, not fake, but warm, measured. The kind of smile I used to give grieving families when I was a hospice nurse. When they didn't know what came next but trusted I did. The group is called to assemble for a photo in honor of Lenora's memory. Ridiculous tradition. Lenora would have hated it. Still, I take my place in the middle. Heather is beside me, arms crossed like she's allergic to mourning. Brent stands behind her, tall and quiet, offering nothing. As the camera clicks, I widen my smile again. Heather mutters something under her breath. Brent places a subtle hand on her elbow and says, "Let's get you some water." It's not kindness. It's containment. They step away just as a guest, a woman I vaguely recognize from the church choir, squeezes my hand and says, "You're holding up so strong, Vivian, like always." I nod. "Thank you." She doesn't see how tightly my hand is clenched around the folded program. She doesn't see the sweat at my spine. She doesn't see the arithmetic in my mind. Because this isn't grief anymore. This is a transaction in motion. I move from guest to guest with polite small talk, as if I'm floating, not walking. They all say the same things. "She was elegant. She had your laugh. She would have hated the flowers." They mean well. But my mind is elsewhere. Heather is watching me now from under oversized sunglasses. I can tell she's rehearsing her next angle. She's never liked to wait, and she hates not being the smartest person in the room, especially when the room is full of linen suits and second cousins with too much to say. Brent tries again. "You ready to head out?" I nod slowly. "I'll just ride with Ruthie if that's all right." His brow furrows. "You sure?" "I'm sure." Heather looks as if she might protest, but the words never come. Her jaw clenches, just long enough to confirm what I already know. She's not grieving my sister. She's circling. That night, I sit alone in my study, the cicadas droning like a warning through the open window. The ceiling fan hums overhead, spinning the heavy air into slow spirals. I pour one glass of sherry, not for sentiment, but precision. The key to the safe is still tucked in the hollow spine of an old hymnal. Heather's never looked there. She always hated church. I turn the key. The lock clicks. Inside I find what I knew I would. The 2016 will, slightly yellowed at the edges, tucked into its cream folder. The same one Heather cried over when I first drafted it. The same one she's been quietly waiting on ever since. Her name is written 3 times. Executor, beneficiary, contact in case of emergency. I pulled it out, lay it flat on the desk, and smile again, this time with no one to stop me. The linen tablecloth ripples slightly as I smooth it flat across the dining table. Beneath it, I lay out the 2016 will like an old X-ray. Every shadow, every fracture now obvious with fresh eyes. Heather's name appears again and again, as if generosity could substitute for gratitude. Executor, primary beneficiary, medical proxy. Every title cloaked in the language of care, every title now a liability. The kettle whistles softly. Jasmine tea. I pour it slow, the steam curling up like a veil between past decisions and the ones I'm about to make. I open my laptop and click on the folder marked Personal Affairs. It hasn't been touched in 6 years. Inside is a half-finished draft from 2020, never updated. I ignore it and open a fresh will template. The cursor blinks. The silence around it is sharper than the storm that's brewing outside. Thunder murmurs in the distance, low, anticipatory. I start typing. This last will and testament is made by me, Vivian Delaney. Half an hour in, I'm stopped by a clause I don't recognize. Something buried under a paragraph about trust distribution, a footnote referring to a supplemental, irrevocable trust I apparently created a decade ago, then forgot about. I blink. That trust holds the vacation property in Edisto I never visit. Heather always called it pointless beachfront and assumed I'd sold it long ago. I haven't, and it's still in my control. I reach for my phone. Ruthie picks up on the third ring. Viv? I need your eyes, I say, and maybe your red pen. 10 minutes later, she arrives in her slippers and a raincoat, a floral umbrella dripping on my porch tile. Her gray curls are pinned tight, and her reading glasses swing from a beaded chain around her neck. She scans the document like it's a crossword puzzle she means to win. You wrote this before your gallbladder surgery? She asks, not looking up. I did. No wonder it's riddled with guilt and flu meds. I pour her a cup of tea. She doesn't drink it. Here, she says, tapping a line with her nail. You gave Heather authority over all living gifts without restriction. And? You can change that now. You're still competent. You're breathing. The clause has no timing lock. You can restructure those gifts immediately. Reroute assets, shift ownership, retitle property. The storm outside cracks suddenly, lightning without delay. Rain begins ticking against the windows like fingers on glass. I lean forward. What if I move the small things first? Jewelry, savings bonds, the keys to Edisto. Clean and legal, Ruthie says. Start small, make them traceable, and name a new executor before you forget. I glance down at the line that once read, Heather Elizabeth Delaney, executor and sole decision-maker. Delete. Type, Ruthie Yvonne Beck, executor. Co-signed. I hit save. The cursor moves on. It feels surgical. Every cut of her name a stitch in my own skin. Not rage, not revenge, just relief. Like removing a thorn I'd let fester too long. Ruthie leans back, satisfied. We'll notarize it this week, quietly. I'd expect nothing less, I reply. She slips on her raincoat again, umbrella in hand, and pauses at the door. You sure you're ready to stir the pot? I smile. I'm not stirring, I'm emptying it. As the door closes behind her, I rise and walk to my bedroom closet. On the top shelf, tucked in a velvet pouch, are the small things. My mother's silver comb, the deed to the Edisto property, a sapphire brooch Lenora gave me when I turned 50. I carry them to the study. One by one, I log them into a spreadsheet titled Living Gifts, Non-Family. I write Nina's name next to the comb, a local shelter next to the brooch. The deed? That's next. The doorbell rings just as the afternoon light begins to shift, soft amber filtering through gauze curtains, catching the dust like golden silk in the air. I'm still in my gardening gloves, dirt under my nails and sweat beading at my temples. I don't expect company. That's reason enough to pause. When I open the door, Heather stands there with a bottle of Chardonnay and a too big smile. Hi, Mom, she says, her tone syrupy and flat. Thought you could use a little cheer. The wine's label is overpriced and impersonal. She's holding it like it's a peace offering, but her eyes already dart past me, scanning the foyer as if she's casing it. I step aside without speaking. She walks in like it's still hers. Her heels click against the hardwood, slow and deliberate, like punctuation marks. Her perfume is the same one she's worn since her 30s, something citrusy and sharp that always made my sinuses burn. She pauses at the hallway mirror, adjusts her hair, then turns to me with feigned softness. It must feel so quiet now. The house, I mean, without Aunt Lenora. I slip off my gloves, let them rest on the counter. It feels peaceful. Heather blinks, as if thrown off by the absence of grief. I brought this, she says, lifting the wine again. We can open it, talk a little. You shouldn't be alone too much. Grief turns inward, you know? I made mint tea earlier, I say, moving past her toward the kitchen. Still warm? I'll pour you a cup. She doesn't argue, but she doesn't sit either. She hovers, inspecting picture frames, glancing at the mail I haven't sorted. She picks up a postcard from the Hospice Foundation and sets it down again without reading it. When we finally sit, she wraps both hands around the teacup like she's posing. I've been thinking about long-term stuff, she says breezily. For you, I mean, transition plans, end-of-life care, estate clarity, all those important pieces. I sip slowly. She leans in a little. There are so many options now, better ones than there used to be, like high-end facilities that actually feel like home, nothing clinical, private chefs, activities. I nod politely. You sound like a brochure. She laughs. It's hollow. I just think it's better to talk about these things while everything's calm, while you can make your wishes clear. I tilt my head. And what do you think my wishes are? Heather straightens her spine, suddenly cautious. Well, you'd want things handled smoothly, with dignity, without burdening anyone. I set my teacup down. Heather, how would you define loyalty? Her expression falters for the briefest second, like a hairline crack in porcelain. I mean, I've always been there, she replies, voice tightening. Even when it was hard, I visit, I check in, I'm trying to help. You've always shown up, I say quietly. But that's not always the same thing. She stands abruptly, brushing non-existent lint from her cardigan. Anyway, I brought something for you, just to look over. She reaches into her designer tote and pulls out a glossy pamphlet, placing it on the coffee table like a delicate accusation. It's a boutique elder care home, she says. Not a facility, a residence, in Mount Pleasant, waterfront views, you'd love it. I don't touch the brochure. She smiles again. Just think about it, okay? No pressure. I walk her to the door. No hug, just the polite nod of people who used to know each other better. When she leaves, her heels vanish down the walkway with that same hollow rhythm. Inside, I sit back down and flip the pamphlet open. A tagline sprawls across the inside cover. We make your loved one's final chapter the easiest. I stare at it. Then I pick up a pen and circle the word final. The morning air smells like brick dust and azaleas as I step into the credit union. My heels click across the polished floor, my tote swinging against my hip. Inside is a blue and white binder with everything I've spent the past week organizing. Account numbers, revised trust documents, notarized changes, photocopies of Lenora's death certificate, and the fresh will, printed with surgical precision. The young woman behind the front desk offers a corporate smile. How can I help you today? I need to open a TOD account, I say. Transfer on death, beneficiary directed. She blinks. Most people my age stumble over those words. I do not. I'll get the branch manager, she says quickly. Moments later, the glass door opens and a tall woman in her 50s steps out, salt and pepper hair, linen blazer, pearl earrings. When she sees me, her eyes light up. Mrs. Delaney? Her tone shifts, gentler now, warmer. I remember you. You volunteered with my mother during her hospice days. The birthday cupcakes, the butterfly quilts. I nod. Yolanda, isn't it? She smiles. You remembered. You held her hand until the end, she adds softly. I've never forgotten that. Neither of us says anything for a moment. Some things don't need filling. Yolanda gestures to her office. Come in. We'll get it done quickly. We sit at her desk while she scans each page of the binder. I don't speak. I just watch her eyes track the evidence. Her fingers pause over the section labeled contingency instructions, exclusions and transfers. You want to move all primary accounts to TOD status? She asks. Yes, excluding the name Heather Elizabeth Delaney, add Ruthie Beck, and Nina Freeman, equal parts. Yolanda hesitates, then simply nods. She begins typing. It'll be effective immediately, and irrevocable once processed. I understand. My tone doesn't crack. She glances up once. People think legal control is strength, but it's restraint. You're doing this with restraint. I don't respond. I don't need comfort. I need clean lines. When she asks about charitable disbursements, I slide the next sheet forward. An authorization to fund a memorial scholarship in Lenora's name. It pulls from the account previously labeled Grandchildren Fund. Heather had always assumed it was for her kids' private school tuition. Annual amount? Yolanda asks. 20,000, I say, to go to any nursing student with a parent in hospice. She types without comment, but her throat tightens. She offers me tissues. I don't take them. The last form is an emergency contact revision. I scratch out Heather's name in bold black ink and replace it with Ruthie's and Dr. Holloway's. No hesitation. No ceremony. By the time I get home, the light has shifted and the mailbox leans open, junk mail slumping out like unwanted guests. I toss the flyers and press the door closed with my hip. The landline rings. Only a few people use it anymore. I answer on the third ring. Vivian, it's Brent. His voice is tight, practiced, like he's rehearsed this call in the car. Heather's upset, he says carefully. She got a notification about some kind of trust change. I say nothing. She's confused, he tries again. She said she's no longer listed on anything? I know. There's a pause. Vivian, I know she's not always tactful, but is this really necessary? I let silence speak for 5 seconds before answering. Just enough for the weight to land. She's not tactless, Brent, I say. She's cruel, and you've watched her become that way. He exhales sharply. This is about Lenora's funeral, isn't it? No, I reply, voice calm and crystalline. It's about the part of me she thought she could bury with it. Then I hang up. No click, no goodbye. Just the line going silent, like the rest of what's left between us. I set the blue folder down on the dining room table like it's sacred, not hidden away in some dark drawer, not shoved behind baking tins in the pantry, but displayed, deliberately, a statement dressed in cardstock. It's labeled in clean black letters, final instructions, no lace, no sentiment, just clarity with weight. Inside, a flash drive containing the newly executed will, Todd authorizations, financial reports, medical directives, and a scanned statement from my physician. The last 2 pages are a cover letter and a clause I insisted on. 30 days of cooling off before anything is contestable. I didn't write it for my daughter. I wrote it for every lawyer she might think can bend ink. The doorbell rings at 10:07 a.m., earlier than expected. I'm still in my robe, hair damp from the shower. Through the peephole, Heather. I don't open the door immediately. I breathe in slowly, exhale with purpose, then twist the knob. She's holding a pastry box from a cafe downtown, the one she always mocked for trying too hard with vegan croissants. Her smile is stiff, like it's been pinned to her face by force. Surprise, she says brightly. I thought we could have breakfast. Sure, I reply. Give me 5 minutes to dress. I leave her in the foyer. She stands there awkwardly, looking around like she's cataloging furniture. When I return, she's not in the foyer. She's in the study. I walk in quietly. She's at the bookshelf, pretending to browse, but her eyes are locked on the table. On the folder. Her hand rests near it, just barely not touching. I clear my throat. She startles, then flashes a grin too late. You really should put important things somewhere safer. What if someone less trustworthy found them? I walk to the folder, pick it up and hold it flat against my chest. You mean someone who walks in uninvited and rifles through drawers labeled private? Her mouth tightens. I didn't open anything. No, I say, but you considered it. We move back to the kitchen in silence. I brew tea while she forces small talk about real estate, church directories, and a woman named Susan who apparently fell during Pilates. She doesn't mention the folder again. I do. Midway through pouring hot water over her Earl Grey, I set the folder back on the table between us. I've sent a full copy to my attorney, I say. Hard and digital. Time-stamped, notarized, witnessed. It's in motion now. Heather stiffens. What kind of motion? 30-day clause, I reply, stirring sugar into my tea. After that, every designation becomes binding. No reversals, no contests. Her laugh is brittle. You act like you're under siege. I act like someone who knows the difference between care and calculation. She pushes her teacup away. You're being dramatic, she says. All I've done is show concern. All I've ever done is try to make sure you're taken care of. No, I say softly. You've tried to make sure I was taken care of. There's a difference. She crosses her arms. So who gets everything then? Ruthie and the gardener? No, I reply, not flinching. Nina. Her lips part, stunned. The housekeeper? The woman who has fed me, driven me, brought me medicine at 3 a.m. and never once asked about inheritance. Heather stands. The chair leg scrapes sharply across the floor. So, this is punishment. No, I say calmly. This is protection for what's left of my time and for what comes after it. She walks to the door with fury masked in tight grace. Just before stepping out, she turns, eyes narrowing. You think you're sharp now, but eventually someone else will have to make the choices for you. You will need someone. I've made my choices, I say, and I'll make them again tomorrow, and the day after, alone, if I must. She slams the door without responding. That evening, I recheck the locks. I walk the hallway with quiet intention, glancing once toward the study. The blue folder is still there, untouched but undeniably seen. Nina brings me a cup of chamomile and sits for a moment beside me on the porch. She came again? She asks. She hovered, I reply, like a shadow that forgot how light works. Nina chuckles softly, shakes her head. I sip my tea, then add, almost as an afterthought, she touches what's not hers again. I turn slowly. She'll be out by Christmas. The technician is young enough to call me ma'am, but smart enough not to explain things twice. He installs the hidden lens in the corner of the study, and a second one tucked discreetly in the crown molding of the guest room. No blinking lights, no sounds, just quiet, high-definition clarity. Footage auto-uploads here, he says, pointing to the app on my phone. And I can set it to sync nightly with a cloud folder or send it to my attorney, I say, every night, automatically. He raises a brow. Doesn't ask. Doesn't need to. By the time he leaves, the house smells faintly of sawdust and lemon oil. The quiet hum of preparedness settles in beside me like an old friend. 2 days later, Heather returns, this time with her youngest, Clara, in tow. The child is 7 now, all curls and side eyes, her mother's attitude still soft around the edges. Heather knocks once, then pushes the door open like she owns it. Surprise again, she sings. We needed a reset, just a little getaway. Clara's been asking about you. Clara looks up at me, unsure. I kneel and open my arms. Come here, baby. She runs into the hug, and for a moment, I forget the war. But war always remembers. Heather sets down an overnight bag, then another, and another. 3 nights? She offers, more as a notice than a question. Of course, I reply, voice warm but even. Guest wings made up. She disappears with the bags, Clara following like a kite on a short string. That night I pretend to read while the camera does the watching. In the guest room, Heather folds and refolds laundry that doesn't exist. She opens my dresser drawers, quickly, precisely. Her eyes scan labels on lotion bottles. She opens a jewelry box, closes it. Takes nothing. She's smarter than that. But the curiosity is surgical. The footage uploads in real time. By midnight, Mr. Ellis has a full file. He texts once, "Got it. This is admissible. Say the word." I don't respond. Not yet. The next morning, I make sweet tea with lemon and mint. I pour 2 glasses, one for me, one I place on the back porch table beside my phone, left on speaker. I dial the bank's automated line. Wait for the voice menu. Then say, loudly, slowly, yes, I'm confirming the liquidation of all remaining certificates of deposit. Yes, all assets are now in fluid holdings. The words float into the open air like bait. I don't look toward the window, but I know she's listening. That afternoon, I get an alert. Motion detected. Study. She's back at it. In the footage, she enters barefoot, holding her phone, pretending to dust. Her fingers hover over the locked cabinet. She glances at my desk drawers. Doesn't open them. Just takes stock. Always watching for what I've moved, or what I've hidden. She doesn't know the cameras are smarter than her secrets. By evening, the guest room is too quiet. Clara is coloring on the back steps with Nina. I sit beside them, pouring fresh tea. Heather is in the bedroom pretending to nap. Instead, she's texting. I see the notification on my smartwatch, still synced to the family thread no one remembers I monitor. Heather to Brent. She's hiding something. She's not dying fast enough. I breathe once, just once. Then I delete the sync. The porch swing creaks gently as Clara hands me a crayon drawing of a flower and says, "Is this for Aunt Lenora in heaven?" I hug her tight. "Better," I whisper. "It's for everyone she helped keep alive." The for sale sign doesn't go up right away. No flashing photos on Zillow, no open invite to Sunday browsers with coffee in hand and nosy questions. Just a single email to Carrie Fenn, a quiet woman with fierce contracts, who once sold 3 historic homes in the old village before anyone even knew they were on the market. By Thursday, it's listed privately, by appointment only. By Friday, Heather finds out. I'm trimming back the rosemary on the front porch when she storms up the steps like the ground owes her an explanation. "You're selling?" she gasps, like I've just announced I'm moving to Mars. I don't look up from the clippers. "Considering it? You can't be serious." "I can," I say calmly, snipping another fragrant stalk. "Everything's temporary, especially entitlement." She stares at me, slack-jawed. "This is our house, family property. It's mine," I interrupt, finally meeting her eyes. "And it always was. You lived here for a blink in your 20s, Heather. That doesn't make it yours." "But Clara loves it here. She thinks of it as where her mother snoops through cabinets and whispers about my will." Her mouth shuts so quickly, I hear her teeth click. She turns sharply and storms inside. I return to my clippings. The couple arrives at 3 p.m. sharp, early 30s. He's an architect, she's a school counselor. They walk through the living room with reverent curiosity, like stepping through a museum where they might someday live. Carrie guides them with practiced poise. Original crown molding, reclaimed heart pine floors, and the entire west-facing wall was redone in 2015 by a local artisan. The woman touches the wood. "I'd open up the study wall here, maybe add French doors." Heather is standing at the top of the staircase, pale, jaw tight, watching like she might lunge. I sip my sweet tea on the porch and pretend not to notice her. "They don't deserve it," she hisses later that night when she corners me by the linen closet. "Neither did the people who assumed it was theirs," I say, brushing past. I move every heirloom into storage the next morning. The portrait of Lenora, the cherrywood china hutch, the engraved silverware set from our mother's wedding day, all catalogued, wrapped in linen, and quietly packed away by 2 moving men who don't ask questions. Nina supervises. Ruthie takes inventory. Heather paces like a caged fox, jaw grinding silently behind her glossed lips. "I hope you realize what you're doing," she spits. "I do," I reply. "It's just taking you longer to realize it." She opens her mouth again, but Ruthie walks in, handing me a folded slip of paper like it's a tip at a dinner party. I unfold it slowly. "They can't block you. It's all clear." I don't nod. I don't smile. But I feel something settle in my bones. That night, Heather is nowhere to be seen. The house is still. I pour myself a small sherry and sit with my ledger. 20 minutes later, my email dings. From Brent.Delaney@portlawfirm.com. Subject: Buy her out. I stare at it. Read the line twice, as if I'm livestock. As if this house is a chess piece. As if the woman who raised their child and buried her sister is an obstacle to negotiate around. I don't open the email. I just let it sit there. And I smile. The email from Brent sits unread for a full day before I respond with 4 words. "Let's schedule a meeting." I offer no detail, just bait. It takes less than 2 hours for Heather to reply on his behalf. "We'll bring documentation and next steps." excited to finalize a plan, as if I'm a property, as if I've agreed to be appraised and divided. I book a conference room at the small downtown law office where Ruthie once clerked in the 80s. Cozy, professional, and, most importantly, not mine. Neutral ground for a war I intend to end on my terms. I invite Mr. Ellis and ask him to wear his best suit. He arrives with a legal pad, a stainless steel thermos of coffee, and a calm expression I've come to interpret as lethal politeness. Heather and Brent arrive exactly 4 minutes late. She's dressed like a Southern dignitary. White blouse, navy skirt, strands of pearls layered at her throat like armor. Brent carries a leather briefcase and 2 folders marked Proposal A and Family Legacy Planning. The gall. I stand when they enter, smile, nod, sit back down. "This is Mr. Ellis," I say. "My legal counsel. He'll be observing." Brent's face doesn't change, but Heather's tightens slightly. Noted. I let them go first. They launch into numbers. Appraisals, buyouts, restructuring, so the transition is smooth when the time comes. Heather talks about consolidating assets, minimizing estate tax, and legacy preservation, as though the words aren't knives. Then she says the quiet part out loud. "It's just about peace of mind, Mama. For everyone." I hold up one hand. "No more." From my bag, I pull out a thick envelope. I pass it across the table. She opens it like a child expecting a birthday card. Inside, a printed copy of my new will, executed, witnessed, recorded. She flips through it too quickly at first, then slows. Her brows crease. She flips back. Once. Twice. "Where's my name?" she whispers, voice thinning. "It's not in there," I reply. "You asked about peace of mind. That's mine." Her face reddens. "So you're giving everything to that maid?" Mr. Ellis clears his throat. "Her name is Nina Freeman. And she's the listed beneficiary, yes, along with 2 charities and the estate executor, Ms. Beck." Heather slams the packet onto the table. "You're not serious." "I am," I say. "Nina never asked me for a damn thing. She never hovered like a buzzard over every pill bottle, never snooped, never sent me brochures about where I should be buried." "You're making a mistake," she hisses. "I am your daughter. And you treated me like a burden with a savings account." Heather's hands tremble as she rises. "This is insanity. You're not of sound mind. This isn't you." "No," I say, rising too. "This is finally me." She throws her purse across her shoulder and takes a sharp step forward. Her heel snags the edge of the rug beneath the coffee table. The small wooden table tips with a hard thud, scattering legal pads and pens across the floor. She screams, "You're senile! This is elder abuse. Reverse elder abuse." Brent steps forward, trying to stabilize her, but she shoves his hand away. Her pearls rattle against each other like angry teeth. Mr. Ellis calmly picks up the fallen documents. "We're done here," I say, lifting my coat. Heather spins toward the door. "You won't get away with this. I'll contest it. I'll go public. I'll be escorted out of a courtroom," I reply. "Alongside your husband. I have footage, dates, records." She stops short. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out. "I gave you a chance to love me more than what I could give you," I say. "And you failed." The door slams behind her. I sit back down, rebutton my coat, pour myself a small paper cup of coffee. Mr. Ellis exhales and says dryly, "You just dropped a cathedral on her." The examination room is quiet, except for the ticking wall clock and the distant sound of a nurse laughing down the hall. My hands rest on the white paper of the exam table, palms open, deliberate. I'm not here for tests. I'm here for proof. Dr. Samira Holloway enters with a soft knock, tablet in hand. She looks elegant even in scrubs. Silver hoops, sleek ponytail, nails painted the same plum color she's worn since I met her 3 years ago. "You don't need to say it," she says, smiling as she sits. "Your daughter called ahead." I raise a brow. "She told my office you've been making irrational changes to your estate, that you're easily confused, that your memory's fading." Her tone stays neutral, but I see the flicker of disgust behind her glasses. "She even tried to schedule this as a cognitive screening behind your back." "I assumed as much," I reply. "So let's give her exactly what she wants." Samira smiles. You ready for the Montreal? Bring it on. 30 minutes later, I've named the current president, sketched overlapping pentagons, recited 7 words forward and backward, and mentally subtracted by 7s like I was teaching a class. When it's done, Samira leans back and crosses her legs. Well, I've tested stroke patients with more fog than you, and you just corrected my pronunciation of echolalia. It's the medical background, I say. Can't turn it off. She opens a drawer, pulls out a letterhead form, and begins to write. Would you like this certified and notarized? And filed at the county courthouse, I add, with a copy to Ellis Law Group and a scanned version to my estate file. She nods. I'll walk it down to the notary myself. I don't like people weaponizing diagnoses. I grip the edge of the table and exhale slowly. I'm not trying to be cruel, Samira. You're not, she says firm. You're just refusing to be erased. By the end of the week, the signed statement reads, Vivian Grace Delaney, age 74, displays no signs of cognitive decline, mental impairment, or diminished decision-making capacity. She is alert, oriented, and fully aware of the consequences and legality of her personal and financial decisions. Stamped, signed, notarized. Ruthie and Mr. Ellis walk it to the county clerk's office in a sealed envelope. It's filed along with the updated will, TOD account summaries, and a copy of the recorded footage from Heather's last outburst. Heather doesn't go quiet. She files a motion to contest on grounds of elder vulnerability. She attaches 3 bullet points. Erratic estate changes. Emotional instability following her sister's death. Suspected undue influence by a domestic employee. Mr. Ellis files his response less than 24 hours later. 3 attached exhibits. A time-stamped log of Heather's uninvited visits. Video footage of her entering the study without permission. Financial records showing regular donations and stable account activity over 6 months. We include the footage of me reciting a legal clause from memory during a tea meeting, and the letter from Dr. Holloway. The motion is thrown out in chambers. No hearing, no courtroom, just a 1-page ruling from a judge I trained back when he was a summer intern. No evidence of diminished capacity. Motion denied. That night, I light a lavender candle and sit with my ledger, marking small donations to the Charleston Women's Initiative and Hospice South Atlantic. The window is open, wind curling around the curtains like a cat settling in for the evening. My cell buzzes at 10:22 p.m. Voicemail. From Brent. His voice is tight, flattened by something brittle underneath. Heather's not well, Vivian. She's saying things I don't recognize. She's threatening to hurt herself. Are you happy now? I sit very still. The candle flickers. The wind hums. I don't cry. I don't panic. I hit replay. Then I save the message to the cloud. Because now we're somewhere else entirely, and I know the difference between a plea for help and a final ploy. I listen to Brent's voicemail once more before deleting it, not because I doubt what Heather said, but because I don't need it haunting my phone like a funeral dirge she rehearsed for sympathy. If she's in crisis, she can call someone licensed. If she's bluffing, I've already called her. Either way, I'm done being her soft place to land after she throws every stone. The next morning, I sit in the breakfast nook where the sun hits just right, tea steeping in my favorite cobalt mug. My hands are steady as I write the email, short, clean, measured, to heather.e.delaney@portlawfirm.com. Subject, resources. Heather, I'm sorry to hear you're struggling. Below is the contact information for Dr. Marla Singh, a trauma-informed therapist familiar with high-conflict family dynamics. She accepts private insurance and offers sliding-scale appointments. All my best, Mom P.S. This email thread will be closed after this message. I block her number. I block Brent's, too. No warning, no drama, just a line drawn like a sealed border. 3 days later, I receive 2 letters in envelopes scribbled with colorful handwriting. One has glitter stickers on the back. The other has a crayon-drawn heart next to my name. Inside, Clara has drawn a picture of the 2 of us baking cookies. Her brother's card says, "We love you, Grandma. Mommy says you're tired, but we can visit when you're ready." The guilt hits like a whisper, not loud but carefully placed. I take a deep breath and write 2 cards back, on real stationery, with a fountain pen Lenora once gave me. Dear Clara and Eli, Grandma loves you both very much. I think of you every day and hope you are smiling and learning and being kind. If you're wondering why I haven't visited, ask your mother. She'll have answers. I hope they are true ones. Love, Grandma. I include 2 pressed flowers, violet for strength, sage for clarity, and seal them with wax. Ruthie mails them for me. I don't wait for a reply. By the weekend, the silence becomes a sound of its own. Heather hasn't come by. No more midnight texts. No envelopes slipped under the door. The absence is almost peaceful, until the neighbors begin to speak. Mrs. Taylor from across the street pauses on her morning walk. Haven't seen your daughter around lately. Everything okay? Mr. King from 2 doors down. You need anything, just holler. That daughter of yours always had such strong opinions. Even Wanda from the book club. Some of us are wondering if you're being treated fairly. You know how rumors start. I smile gently. I don't correct them. I don't explain. Silence, I've learned, is a scalpel when used right. Let them wonder. Let them imagine the conversations I'm not having. Let Heather try to control a narrative she no longer owns. On Thursday morning, a white envelope arrives, slid beneath my door. It's not from Heather. No handwriting, I know. The paper is clean, folded into thirds. Tucked inside is a printed email from a Maggie Callahan, Charleston Courier reporter. Subject: potential interview opportunity, estate planning and family contention. She writes of interest in covering the rising tensions in family inheritance battles. She's heard community rumors about a local matriarch pushing back. She'd love a quote, or a sit-down. Just 1 line is handwritten at the bottom. They're already telling your story. Would you like to tell it yourself? I meet the journalist at a bakery near the waterfront, the kind with exposed brick walls, copper kettles hanging above the counter, and sunlight pouring through the windows like it's been told to stay a while. Maggie Callahan is young, maybe early 30s, sharp-eyed and patient, with a notepad and a voice that doesn't try too hard. I just want your story, Mrs. Delaney, she says. Not the spin, not the gossip, the real version. I sip my tea, Earl Grey with a splash of honey. Then we start where most women's stories don't, after everyone thinks they already know how it ends. The article runs 2 Sundays later. Front page of the Charleston Courier's weekend feature section. Title: How One Southern Matriarch Took Back Her Life Before It Was Gone. The opening photo is of me sitting on my porch, hands folded on my lap, Ruthie's garden blooming just behind me. I look calm, strong, not fragile, not grieving. Not the woman Heather kept describing in legal filings as emotionally unstable following familial loss. Maggie writes with grace, not pity. She details the will, the executor change, the revoked proxies, the cameras, the scholarship in Lenora's name. She names Nina outright, quoting her directly. She saw me when I wasn't trying to be seen, and gave without fear. I don't cry reading it, but Nina does. She folds the paper 3 times, presses it to her chest, and sits in silence on the swing for a full 5 minutes. I never thought someone like me would end up in a story like that, she finally says. You didn't end up in it, I tell her. You earned your name in it. A week later, I get the first letter, then the second, then 12 more. Women across South Carolina write to say they see themselves in my story. One woman in Columbia says she's started withdrawing access from her son. Another in Greenville just rewrote her power of attorney for the first time in 20 years. One writes simply, "Thank you for proving we're not crazy for wanting boundaries." I read them one by one, fold them neatly, place them in a box marked dignity. Then I call my attorney. I redirect funds to 3 women's shelters, each one with a program for seniors navigating financial abuse or family estrangement. Nina receives a key in the mail 2 days later. Her name, for the first time in her life, is on a deed. I can't, she starts, voice breaking. You already did, I say, every time you stayed. It takes only a week for Heather to respond, not with a letter, not with a call, but with a post. Her public account, under the guise of promoting estate planning awareness, shares a screenshot of the Courier article with a 1-line caption. She's a liar. She made herself a victim for the attention. Hundreds of people comment, some defend her, others don't. I don't respond, I don't log in, I don't engage. Instead, I walk to my garden, snip a blooming stem of coral honeysuckle, and place it beside Lenora's picture on the mantel. Then I go back to the porch, brew more tea, and smile into the wind. The invitation arrives in a heavy linen envelope, white, embossed, stamped in deep blue foil. From South Atlantic Regional Summit on Estate and Inheritance Law. Subject, Keynote Panel Invitation, Aging, Autonomy, and Legal Systems, What Comes Next? They want me to speak, not as a cautionary tale, as an example. I turn the envelope over in my hands. The seal unbroken, the name spelled exactly right, not Viv, not Miss D, not Mom, just Vivian Grace Delaney. And I know I didn't just win something, I reclaimed it. The lights dim slowly in the ballroom at the Hilton on Calhoun Street. Rows of cushioned chairs creak as lawyers, advocates, and court clerks settle in, murmuring into their notebooks and phones. The podium sits beneath a long linen banner that reads, South Atlantic Summit on Aging and Legal Rights behind it, a single microphone. I wait in the wings, palms cool, voice quiet inside me. I am not nervous. I've sat with people taking their final breaths. I've stitched skin, washed bodies, notarized wills while grief still clung to the air like cigarette smoke. Speaking truth? That's easy. When they call my name, Vivian Grace Delaney, keynote panelist, the room politely claps. I walk slowly, deliberately. No cane, no tremble. Just wait. I adjust the mic. Look out. The lights blur the faces, but I see the stillness, 1,000 bodies choosing to listen. I begin. When my daughter whispered I was next to die, I smiled. The air changes, a ripple of discomfort, a silence that sharpens the edges of the room. Not because I didn't hear her, but because I did. And I finally understood the story I'd been written into. A passive character, a footnote, a future liability. I don't speak loud, I speak clean. Older women are taught to fade, to surrender decision-making, to hand over the passwords, the checkbooks, the property lines, because that's what good looks like, but good doesn't always mean safe, and silence doesn't mean consent. There's a stillness now, the kind that comes when every mind in a room holds its breath. We have laws to protect property, contracts to protect companies, but no mechanism strong enough to shield a grandmother from her own blood. That is not a legal oversight. That's a cultural one. Someone sniffles near the second row. A hand wipes a cheek in the back corner. I wasn't brave. I was desperate. I didn't fight because I wanted to. I fought because they started counting my days while I was still writing them. The last line settles into the room like dust after a storm. I end with this. I am not your cautionary tale. I am your warning shot. Then I step back. I do not bow. And the room erupts. People stand, applauding. Some stay seated, clutching tissues, heads bowed. A young intern mouths, "Thank you," as I pass. A judge I once trained places a hand to her chest. I do not soak it in. This wasn't for performance, it was for record. Later, in the hotel lounge, I sip chilled water and sign a few programs. Mr. Ellis raises a glass from across the room. Ruthie gives me a quiet nod. Nina watches from her seat near the bar, eyes shining. My phone buzzes. It's a message from an unknown number. But I know the style, the punctuation, the space between words. Brent. I underestimated you. So did she. I stare at the screen. Then I tap a single response, thumbs up, and I slide the phone back into my purse. The next morning, I rise before the sun. The sky is a soft purple, the kind Lenora used to call morning bruises. The new porch faces east, and I sit wrapped in a quilt stitched by hands no longer living. Nina brings me coffee in a floral mug. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. We watch the day begin like it's never happened before. Then I see it. On the wicker table near the screen door. A thick white envelope. No postage, no return address. Just my name. In familiar script. Vivian. The ink curls like it's trying too hard to be soft. But I know it. I know that handwriting the way you know your own reflection after a hard night. Heather, again. The envelope rests on my lap like a warning draped in nostalgia. The handwriting is unmistakable, every curl and loop still trying to imitate grace. The paper smells faintly of lilac perfume and desperation. I wait until the sun is fully up before I open it. Inside, one sheet of ivory stationery, thick and expensive, folded twice. No envelope liner. She always cut corners when it didn't directly benefit her. The letter begins, "Mom, can we have just one more conversation? In person, face to face. Just you and me, no lawyers, no paperwork, no drama. I think we deserve that much. There's one thing I'd like to ask for. Aunt Lenora's diamond brooch. You know the one. The one she wore to your anniversary party? It's really all I want. Something to remember her by, to pass down. This isn't about money. It's about legacy. It's about healing. Healing." She signs it with a flourish. "Love always, Heather. No apology, no ownership, just a foot in the door disguised as sentiment." I fold it once, then again. Then I walk to the hallway closet, pull down the small tin box with donation receipts, and slide out the program from the Charleston Cancer Recovery Gala. Third page. Auction items number 22 to number 31. Number 29, Art Deco Platinum Diamond Brooch. Anonymous donor. Raised $8,100. I gave it away. Quietly. Months ago. No plaque, no press. Just a brooch once worn by my sister, now worn by someone who'd survived the same cancer Lenora never did. I sit at my desk. The words come quickly. "Heather, it's gone. Not sold, donated. To someone who understood what loss meant without trying to turn it into currency. There is no conversation to be had. The last one we had was enough. You made your position clear. Now I'll do the same. This door is closed." Mom, I don't sign it with love. I seal it. Ruthie drops it in the post. 3 days later, Mr. Ellis calls with his voice a little more clipped than usual. She sent a threat, via certified letter, claims she intends to file a motion of undue influence over the estate assets. Again. I sigh. Does she really think the third time's the charm? She included language about Nina being unfit and suggested coercion by medical professionals, he says. "We'll send a cease and desist. You don't have to lift a finger." "I'll send a single sentence for you to include," I say. He chuckles lightly. "Make it brutal." I write, "My mother has moved on. You should too." Ellis sends it off the next morning, certified, signed receipt requested, his legal letterhead sealed over mine like armor. That afternoon, Heather posts again. Cryptic quotes about betrayal, power, and how truth always finds light. I only know because Ruthie reads them aloud during our porch tea, raising one perfectly sculpted eyebrow each time Heather stumbles into her own projection. "She's flailing," Ruthie says. "You're winning." "I'm done playing," I reply, "so I'm leaving the board." That night, I sit at the kitchen table and open my phone settings. I scroll to contacts, delete, Heather delete, Brent delete, shared grandkids thread. I pause for 1 second, then press confirm. I change my number, set it to private, no voicemail, no call forwarding. Then I open my address change form from the county office. Forwarding address? I leave it blank. No breadcrumbs, no clues. Just my name, once again, detached from her orbit. By morning, the number is dead. The porch swing sways with the breeze. Nina brings in fresh-cut hydrangeas. Ruthie hums as she snips mint outside the kitchen window, and I sit in the silence I bought back with every boundary I enforced. I sit at my kitchen table, a warm legal pad resting beside a glass of lemon water, and reread the sentence that once began with Heather's name. Now it's blank, not scratched out, not redacted, just reabsorbed, like it never belonged there to begin with. This time, I'm not editing out of rage, not tightening language to build a wall around myself. I'm writing with clarity, like pruning back a garden so it has space to grow again. I open the newest version of my estate documents. My name still tops every page. This time, every line breathes. The beneficiary list is small, intentional, no branches left dangling, no footnotes waiting to hurt me. Nina Freeman receives the majority. She's now the sole owner of the savings account and a joint signatory on the small rental property in Mount Pleasant I never talked about. She thinks I just kept that place for tax reasons. She doesn't know I always imagined her retiring there. Ruthie Beck is listed next. My executor still, but also willed a modest fund marked for unrestricted joy. Her reaction when I told her, "I'll spend it all on heirloom tomatoes and white linen." I hope she does. Dr. Samira Holloway and my hospice team, the women and men who whispered peace to others in their final moments, now each hold a share of my medical directive trust, which includes stipends for continuing education and compassionate care grants. Then the garden. I walk outside and trace my fingers along the stone path that Lenora and I laid ourselves years ago. I imagine strangers here in 5 years, women I've never met walking these beds of rosemary and wild iris. The paperwork is already filed. Charleston Urban Wellness Initiative will inherit the land, maintaining it as a therapeutic public space for aging women in transition. No family signatures required, no heirloom left in the hands of anyone waiting for me to fail. The final page is a letter. It's short, handwritten, folded behind the legal documents, sealed in its own envelope, addressed to any executor or relative who finds this. This version is final, not because I'm gone, but because I'm finally whole. No one owns the ending. Not even family. Vivian Grace Delaney. I place it inside the document sleeve and zip the folder shut. There's one last thing to return. At the bank, the vault is colder than I remember. The security manager leads me down the hallway in respectful silence. The walls smell of steel and old air conditioning. He opens box 302. Inside, my former safe, a small polished container once meant to hold marriage certificates, Lenora's letters, Heather's childhood report cards, old passports, and the original 2016 will. I stare at it like I'm looking at a keepsake I no longer want to keep. "I'd like to close this unit," I say, "permanently." The man nods and waits while I carry the safe out myself. It's lighter than it used to be. Or maybe I've just grown stronger. Back home, I leave it on the curb. Not even for trash, just for someone else to find, repurpose, or forget. Inside, Ruthie's waiting at the kitchen counter, nursing a cold glass of sweet tea and flipping through today's courier. "You mailed everything?" she asks, setting her glass down with a quiet clink. "Hand-delivered the rest," I reply, brushing dust off my skirt. "Filed, notarized, logged, and witnessed." Ruthie looks up, her voice softer than usual. "Do you feel done?" I lean against the countertop and glance toward the window. The wind moves the hydrangeas. The porch swing rocks once without a push. "No," I say slowly. "I feel clean." The morning light is soft and golden, curling around the live oaks like it's been here forever. Spanish moss drips like silk from the branches. The shoreline trail behind my house is empty, save for the sound of waves tapping against the marsh banks and the distant rustle of palmetto fronds. My sneakers crunch quietly along the dirt path. I walk without urgency. Each step feels like a sentence punctuated, "This is what it means to live without looking over your shoulder." Halfway down the bend where the creek meets the bay, I pause near a wooden bench carved with a single phrase, "Let rest be sacred." It was Lenora's favorite spot. I sit for a moment and close my eyes, the breeze brushing against my cheek like a slow exhale. I could almost believe she's here, not in some cosmic sense, but in the fact that I'm still doing what we promised, finding peace before anyone tried to steal it. "Excuse me," a voice says, hesitant but warm. I blink my eyes open. A woman stands a few feet away, mid-60s, cardigan tied around her waist, her sneakers coated in dust. "You're Vivian Delaney, right?" she asks, clutching a canvas tote like it holds something fragile. "I saw your picture in the courier." I nod. She steps closer, eyes glistening. "I just wanted to say thank you. Your story. I gave my daughter back her keys last week, and I kept my name on the deed." I smile. The kind that starts in the chest and makes it all the way to the corners of your mouth. "You did the hard part," I say. She chuckles softly, then walks on, her figure disappearing around the next bend. I don't need a plaque or a building or a memoir. That moment, her thank you, was the legacy Heather tried to rewrite and never could. Every Wednesday, I drive to the courthouse annex and wait in the gravel parking lot for whoever needs a ride. Women, sometimes older, sometimes younger, all of them cautious. They hold manila folders, shaky pens, probate documents, divorce filings, letters from banks they never wanted to speak to. I don't say much unless they ask. I just drive. Listen. Offer tissues from the glove box. Sometimes just having someone in the front seat who isn't trying to take anything from them is enough. Once a month, I meet with a small circle of them at Nina's garden. We drink lemonade, we laugh, we learn how to name things that once hurt us in silence, and every time I leave, I smile. Nina visits often now. She lets herself in like she always has, with a knock that's more a courtesy than a question. She brings fresh cornbread, stories from her niece's graduation, and photographs of the new curtains she picked for the Mount Pleasant house. "I never had linen curtains before," she says one afternoon, swinging gently on the porch. "I used to think they were only for people who didn't have to measure every inch of thread." "And now?" I ask. She looks out at the yard. The garden's still thriving, even in fall. "Now I know they're for people who don't ask permission to belong." The swing creaks beneath us, its rhythm as old and perfect as breath. Holiday cards arrive in waves, some from friends, some from strangers, some from women, who read the article and wanted to tell me how they finally rewrote their wills, or removed a manipulative son from their accounts, or decided not to be afraid anymore. A few simply say, "Because of you, I chose myself." I place them in a box Ruthie labeled, "Letters That Kept Giving." Heather never writes again. There's no final call, no doorstep apology, no moment of softness wrapped in regret. And in the end, I never needed it. Some ties were meant to be cut clean, not knotted endlessly in the hope of a different ending. I walk the trail again the next morning. Same wind, same light, same smile. Because it stayed when she didn't.